In this video you'll get all the answers you're looking for. Bitcoin's pumped up to 35,000 and I know some of you are confused and anxious about where things go from here. It especially doesn't help when all these crypto influencers are throwing random takes in your face. It can be quite overwhelming, I know. So let's just get into it, worry no more. First off, we're not in a bull market, so any influencer saying that I'd stay as far away from as possible. An asset isn't in a bull market until it clears all-time highs. So according to this chart here, Bitcoin isn't in a bull market until it clears 69,000 and distributes into price discovery. Until then, Bitcoin has the license to get as funky and weird as it wants, in here, in other words, accumulation. Now, is it possible for Bitcoin to trend straight up and hit resistance, clear it, and enter a bull market? Sure, that could happen. I mean, it's unlikely, but even if it does, it doesn't matter, as we're using altcoins anyway to make those fat juicy gains and not Bitcoin. As if you were using Bitcoin, that'd mean you have an extremely low risk appetite, which I know isn't the case. Or you're wealthy enough where making a 3 to 5x on Bitcoin can give you big money in return. But for the rest of us, it's altcoins we're dealing with, and again, there's no need to FOMO even at that hypothetical $69,000 level. As even at that point and beyond, there'll be plenty of altcoins to make a 10x plus on. Which, if that's the case, then you best believe we're still very, very early on altcoins right now at this current 30+K range, so stop stressing. I know it may seem there's some altcoins that may have gotten away from us and have trended out of reach, some of which may include the likes of Solana or Chainlink or Injective and so on. But that's the name of the game and is why you should have been buying these assets at range lows. But forget about it for now, it doesn't matter, there's still hundreds of other altcoins to choose from. And most importantly, other micro caps that have barely even moved yet, and won't move until once again Bitcoin enters a bull market. The bigger question for now is, do you go all into the altcoins you want because the quote-unquote bull market is about to start, or do you wait because this is a bull trap or something? I do have to admit that if you don't have somewhat of a position in the markets, I think you're absolutely insane. I made a video exactly about this, screaming buy now or regret, for another 4 years back in early May, where I was basically saying buy before we get this massive pump and everyone turns bullish and others are left confused, which is what we're dealing with right now, which is precisely why I'd been buying. I'm around 70% into the markets with 30% in stables. 40% of that is split between Bitcoin and ETH with 20% apiece. This has been the case since December of last year, which I've stated multiple times across my old TikToks and YouTube videos. 60% is designated for altcoins with around half in, where I'd been DCing into some of my favorites, like Solana, Render, Chainlink, and so on. And some of these bags aren't even fully allocated, like Render or Injective or GMX, where going forward I may not get the entries that I want. But it doesn't matter, because in this case we adapt and move on to the next altcoins. You'll see what I mean. Right now you need a plan, and if you don't have one, allow me to tell you mine. The plan has entirely to do with Bitcoin and what its price action is going forward, let's say into the halving, where we act in accordance. If you analyze this move up, it came as a result of Cointelegraph tweeting the ETF is approved, and even though they lied, it helped people realize they'd not been appropriately allocated for the ETF when it does get approved. And so this move seems to be the pricing in of the ETF, where if you were to ask me, I'm not sure if we're quite done yet. So I don't see a reversal move happening until the ETF is approved, which can happen at any time, even in the coming days. Once it gets approved, I think we see one big candle upward to, let's say, even a $40,000 Bitcoin. We made a video back in June talking about a 40K Bitcoin in Q3. And even though our timing was slightly off and we may not have hit 40K quite yet, the point I made in that video still stands. The paramount effect the Goldilocks period has, which we're still in right now, the idea that we're waiting for all these things like the Bitcoin halving, like the ETF, like a recession, and so on. But the thing is, while we're waiting for these things, the markets aren't asleep, they're still very much active. And thus, before any huge catalyst comes along, Bitcoin can slowly but surely trend up until something causes it to break down. Something like this figure I drew on the screen here, which we'll get back to again because it's very important. So we saw this coming relatively. But the new and obviously most important variable that's been introduced is the ETF, which admittedly can cause a run to all-time highs and then we go parabolic from there. But in the case that doesn't happen, I find it very unlikely to be up, only all things considered. So yes, I do think we see one final flush like we've always gotten before the halving. The question is, when does that flush happen, meaning from what price point? It could be from this 35k top, which if it is, then we keep it simple, just buy heavy on the next move downward. That's one scenario. In that case, many of the altcoins will break down hard and get back into those ranges where we continue DCAing easy peasy. In my opinion, what we see is more upward action to, let's say, 38,000, 40,000, 45,000, even 50,000, and then that big flush downward of 30 to 50%. Personally, I think we get to 40k plus where the ETF news marks the top. Then soon after, one final move downward to, let's say, 30,000. I think it'd be very healthy if we hold 30. If that happens, I buy heavy on the way down, where I really start going in at again the 30k level downward and below, because I still have 30% of my money left to go into the market. In scenario 3, where it's nothing but up only with no corrections on the way, in that case we play the micro cap game, looking at those sub 50 million market cap gems. The reason is these micro caps will stay stagnate and barely move, even if Bitcoin would have cleared 69k and gone parabolic. We have all the time in the world to get into micro caps, and so if we get scenario 3 here where Bitcoin goes bull, the first video I'm going to make is a micro cap video stating all the micro caps I'm buying, so make sure to subscribe for that, because that'll be almost an emergency type video. I'll say the plan again: if 35,000 is the top, we cool it, let it come down, altcoins get crushed because look how high dominance is and will continue to get, and we buy our favorite altcoins cheap. To see the strategy I'm using to do that, watch my timing the bottom video on altcoins. It's a must-have tool. Scenario 2, the one I'm looking for, is we keep pushing higher, the ETF news breaks, Bitcoin gets to 40,000 plus, gets that hard correction like it always does, and we buy heavy there. Scenario 3 is Bitcoin goes ballistic, all the money in the world floods in which case we play micro caps, which I'll make a video on if needed. Until then, please stay calm and focused. Forget about the altcoins you think have gotten away. If you don't have some sort of position, what on earth are you doing? Play the strong narratives. The ones I'd recommend is AI infrastructure plays like Render, Akash Network, Filecoin, BitTensor is big. Gaming is also big. Look at PYR, IMEX, Gala's been having a bit of a revive. Look at derivatives and trading like GMX, DYDX, OXO. And don't even get me started on the micro-cap niches, I guess you can call them. Narratives such as LSDFi, trading bots, remember those, the metaverse, real-world assets, privacy plays, and much, much more. And then there's also those crypto gems and niches that haven't even launched yet. Until then, DCA where appropriate. Start getting your positions ready, guys, because the games are finally about to begin. Be patient but be urgent. You waited 2 years for a reason. Check out the exchange links in bio for big bonuses and cheap fees. Leave a like and sub for more. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.